Bonjour classe, bienvenue à notre leçon pour Français 2, leçon 1. If you want to follow along, I'm starting in your textbook on page 32. So go ahead, open it up, get ready, and on y va. Très bien, classe. Take a look at the screen. You will notice that we have quite a few things that are review this week, and we're just going to keep adding to what we already know. All of our question words are coming back this week. Qui, quand, où, comment. Here's a new one, combien. Do you remember combien? It means how much or how many. And quel. Quel is actually the first part of that phrase, qu'est-ce que, that we learned last week, but we're using it slightly differently this week. So let's take a look at some of these questions and see which ones you can translate and answer. Comment t'appelles-tu? Comment t'appelles-tu? Quelle est ta nationalité? Où habites-tu? Quel âge as-tu? Où es-tu né? That's a new word. We don't know that one yet. Quand es-tu né? So you should be recognizing these question words, but you'll probably notice the absence of est-ce que, because this week we've stopped using est-ce que for our questions, and instead, notice we're putting the word tu at the end of the question and attaching it with a hyphen. This is another way to form questions in French, which is called inversion, because you take the structure, the order of the words, and you invert it. You flip it. So you'll notice, où habites-tu instead of où est-ce que tu habites? That's inversion. Quel âge as-tu? There's the word tu at the very end, attached to the verb with a hyphen. Do you recognize some of these words? You should recognize comment. Comment t'appelles-tu? What's your name? How are you called? Quelle est ta nationalité? This is a cognate, just like the word in English. What is your nationality? Quel âge as-tu? What age do you have? But we would say, how old are you? Où habites-tu? Where do you live? Où es-tu né? Where were you born? That's what that funny looking word means. Et quand es-tu né? If this means where were you born, what does this mean? Quand es-tu né? When were you born? So you should be able to answer those questions 100% en français by the end of this week. By the end of this chapter, you will be able to ask those questions and answer them in French. La nationalité se trouve à la page 33. If you turn to page 33, you'll be able to see a list of different nationalities. We've already learned some of them. Last year in French 1, you learned américain. Je suis américain. Anglais. Il est anglais. Français. Jean-Claude est français. Do you remember with nationalities, because you're describing people and where they're from, that there is a masculine and a feminine version? So what would that be for Américaine? If I say, je suis américaine, I add an E, right? If I'm talking about a girl who is English, elle est anglaise, you simply add an E. And someone who is French, feminine for French is française with an E. The same applies for these others. A couple of these are new. Japonais. And the feminine, japonaise. Mexicain. Looks just like Américain, doesn't it? So you can guess that the feminine is Mexicaine. And I have to move my picture a little bit over here so you can see the last flag. What's that flag? Canadien. Canadien. To make this one feminine, you have to add an extra N-E. Canadien, Canadienne. Voila. Class, these aren't all the nationalities. In fact, there are even more if you look on page 33. but this is a start. So take a look at that page, look at some of the other nationalities, notice which ones are cognates, which ones look like American words, and then some of them will surprise you. Some of them don't look like the English word that we use at all, and those are the ones you're really going to want to study. And see if you can find some of your family background in some of those nationalities as well. When we meet together face-to-face in class, I have a whole list of other nationalities, so if your family comes from other parts of the world that aren't featured on page 33, we'll talk about it in class, no worries. Now the next part of this week's chapter is talking about family. Where am I going? I'm going to go over here so that I'm out of the way of this beautiful family tree. Look at these guys. Ma famille. You should remember most of these from last year. For example, ma grand-mère, mon grand-père, ma tante, mon oncle. Voici ma mère, et voilà mon père. Aussi ma sœur et mon frère. Et mon cousin et ma cousine. Et aussi mon animal domestique, Fifi, le poisson rouge. Mais n'oublie pas, peut-être il y a un chien ou un chat, etc., etc. Class, there are so many more family members than you even learned last year that if you take a look at this in the textbook, you're going to see we're adding things in. We already know mother, father, grandmother and grandfather. We know sister and brother. I think you probably learned cousin, cousin, cousine. It's pretty easy if you didn't learn it last year. We're adding in mon oncle, my uncle, ma tante, my aunt, le poisson rouge, Fifi. We're also adding in a few others. For example, ma nièce, my niece, mon neveu, my nephew. We're also learning how to talk about the ages of people. Un enfant, a child, right? Un adulte, an adult. Un bébé, a baby. So take a look at that page in your textbook as well, and take note of the ones that you already know and the ones that are different. The last thing for this short video is to look at when we talk about family members, we usually talk about them in reference to ourselves, right? It's not just any old mother. That's my mother you're talking about. Ma mère. And hopefully you all take ownership of your brothers and sisters if you have them. You don't deny that they exist. I hope you get along well enough to say, that's ma sœur, my sister, et mon frère, my brother. And who are those kids in the other class? Oh, that's my cousin, mon cousin. Or if your cousin is a girl, ma cousine. Are you starting to see a pattern? When you say my, there are two ways to say it. There's the masculine way and the feminine way. You knew this was coming, right? This is just how French is. There's always going to be a masculine form and a feminine form. So mon, M-O-N, is the masculine form. If you're talking about your brother who's a boy, use mon. Your father, mon père. Your grandfather, mon grand-père. But if you're talking about a girl or a woman, someone who's feminine, use ma mère, ma sœur, ma cousine, ma tante. It's just like the difference between un and une, right? Mon and ma. Class, we're going to talk about more of these in class, but I would like to just show you a little sneak peek. Some of the other possessive adjectives. This is how we talk about things that belong to us, maybe things that belong to you, things that belong to all of us. Ma famille, my family. Mon oncle, my uncle. Mon chien, my dog. You can even use this to talk about inanimate objects like, hey, that's my pencil. Mon crayon. And notice that's when I talk about my stuff, but if I'm talking about your stuff, look right over here. Ta maison, ton chat, ta grand-mère. Do you see what we did there? The feminine for my is ma. The feminine for your is ta. Couldn't be easier. The masculine is mon, and the masculine is ton. Just switch out that first letter and you've got a whole new word. So if this is ta maison, your house, ton chat, your cat, ta grand-mère, your grandma, what are we going to put here for your nephew? Is your nephew a boy or a girl? Is your nephew masculine or feminine? Masculine? Ton neveu. Super bien. Class, we'll be talking about more of this together in class, but this is to get you started. So, watch this video, notice the difference between masculine and feminine. We are also going to talk about plural. In fact, I'll give you a hint. Look down here at ami. Ami is plural, more than one friend. I hope you have more than one friend that you can talk about. My friends is mes amis. Could you see that coming? Do you remember the definite articles? Le, la, masculine, feminine. What's the plural? Les. So it only makes sense. Mon, ma, mes. And that pattern is going to continue as we learn more of these possessive adjectives. That's what we have going on this week. I hope you enjoy. I look forward to seeing you in class. Take a look at these pages in your book and be ready to talk about it next time we meet. Merci. À bientôt. Au revoir.